Good evening to all of you. Thanks very much for joining this presentation for prospective students entitled The Value of a Liberal Arts Education. My name is John Mahoney, and I'm the Vice Provost for Enrollment Management at Boston College. At the outset here, I just want to pass along my sincere hope that you and your families are safe and healthy during this challenging time for our country. We recognize here in the admissions office at Boston College that your college search process has been disrupted and that you're not able to visit college campuses this summer, which is what you'd probably be doing. We hope that you've taken advantage of some of our online information sessions or a campus tour online. And tonight's program is designed to give you even further insight into the Boston College experience. Now, if you've done some baseline research about Boston College, you know that it's a Jesuit Catholic university. And since the early Jesuits began operating colleges and universities nearly 500 years ago, they have emphasized the value of a liberal arts education. This is manifested today at Boston College through our core curriculum, which exposes students to a broad array of subject areas, ideas, and ways of looking at the world. Now, when you get to college, you will, of course, pursue a major. You might even pursue a double major. But we believe that liberal arts education is crucial to developing the analytical thinking, problem solving, and communication skills which are essential in a world ever changing due to the impact of technology, and now a pandemic. In addition to this important skill set, liberal arts education offers students the chance to confront questions about who they are, what kinds of lives they want to lead, and what kind of impact they want to have on the world. Our presentation tonight will run for about 45 minutes, and you're welcome during the course of that presentation to submit questions through the Q&A function of Zoom. We'll try to address as many of those questions as we can before we conclude at just about 7 o'clock. It is now my pleasure to introduce for you our distinguished faculty panel, and they're also joined this evening by three current Boston College students whom they will introduce once they are talking about their session. Brian Garreau is Associate Professor of Sociology and International Studies. Professor Garreau earned his PhD at the University of California, Santa Cruz. He was named Associate Dean for the Core in 2018, which means that he oversees the core curriculum here at Boston College. He also chairs the Core Renewal Committee. Professors Gabriel Oliveira and Andres Castro Samayoa created one of the complex problems courses in Boston College's innovative Core Renewal program. Complex problems courses are team taught by professors who challenge their students to think across disciplines about topics of critical importance in contemporary society. A complex problems course fulfills two core curriculum requirements here at BC. The complex problems course that Professors Oliveira and Samayoa taught in fall of 2019 was called Citizenship, Immigration, and Belonging in the United States. Can education save us? Professor Gabriel Oliveira is Assistant Professor in the Lynch School of Education and Human Development here at Boston College. She earned her master's degree in International Affairs at Columbia University and her PhD in Anthropology and Education at Teachers College, Columbia University. Professor Andres Castro Samayoa is Assistant Professor in the Lynch School of Education as well. He has a master's degree in philosophy from Cambridge University and a PhD in education from the University of Pennsylvania. At this point, I want to turn the program over to my colleague, Professor Brian Garreau.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It's my pleasure to tell you a bit more about the core curriculum and in particular, this course that Andres and Gabby taught, and to give you a chance to hear from the students in their class more about what it's like to engage in the core curriculum at Boston College. So to do this, I'm gonna walk through a couple PowerPoint slides with you. So we'll wait for a second for the PowerPoint to come on. Thank you very much. So as John said, the core curriculum is really at the heart of the undergraduate experience at Boston College. It's something that we think makes Boston College distinctive from other schools. That's why it's called the core and, you know, the general education requirements. It's also why the core is a central feature in Boston College's strategic plan, Ever to Excel. It's truly at the heart of the university, both for the students and for the rest of us that work at Boston College. Next slide, please. It's because the 15 core requirements that make up the core isn't just a set of general education requirements easily replaced by an AP exam. The core is designed to provide students with a foundational interdisciplinary educational experience rooted in the Jesuit Catholic mission of the university, to teach students about the social and natural sciences and the humanities, and to help students begin to discern who they are, to grapple with questions of faith and reason, and to start the journey of discovering what the world needs of them. Now, you could see here the 15 core requirements, and I want to point towards one in particular because Gabby and Andres' course deals with this, and you'll hear more about this in the upcoming presentation. One of the 15 requirements is cultural diversity. And it's important to know that at Boston College, we've been undergoing a set of initiatives to update the cultural diversity core requirement. One that Gabby and Andres' course deals with is difference, justice, and the common good. In these core courses, students explore the relationship between justice and the common good, and they imagine how to act constructively in dialogue with people who are marginalized and dispossessed. So we're very excited about this renewal of this particular core requirement. So I'll be glad to hear more about how Gabby and Andres and their students engaged with difference, justice, and the common good in their course. Next slide, please. So there are many excellent courses in our core curriculum, but as John alluded to, some of them are truly distinctive BC courses, and some are designed specifically for first-year students. So this evening, we will talk about some of those distinctive courses, complex problems in particular, but I'll also tell you a little bit about another set of courses called Enduring Questions courses. So both complex problems and Enduring Questions courses are for first-year students only. They both fulfill at least 2 core requirements. Some, such as Andres and Gabby's course, fulfills a third in cultural diversity through difference, justice, and the common good. Complex problems are 6-credit courses in which 2 instructors from 2 different disciplines share the lecture. They have a weekly hands-on lab component, and there are weekly reflection sessions. Next slide, please. Now, some of these complex problems courses utilize a program that we call the POD Leadership Program for their reflection sessions. So POD stands for Purposeful Ongoing Discussion. And in these courses, the students will get together with upper class students that help facilitate conversations around course material and also encourage the students to think about why the material is important to who they are and how they understand the world around them. This has been a very successful model. Andres and Gabby's course utilizes the POD Leadership Program. And so I thought it would be important to mention that here because you'll probably hear the phrase pods come up again, either from the students or Andres and Gabby. And you can see here a list of some of the courses that are using the pod model. We've had well over 1,000 students run through, take courses that had the pod model. And we have another 4 or 5 that will be using it next year. Next slide, please. And just to complete this discussion of the distinctive programs, this is how Enduring Questions courses look. So Enduring Questions courses are 2 paired courses taught separately by 2 different instructors, but they're connected through the question that binds those courses together. The same students take both of the courses, they attend reflection sessions 4 times during each semester, and for these smaller courses of 19 students, there aren't any labs. Next slide, please. So complex problems courses engage with contemporary problems that are challenging to solve. They require interdisciplinary perspectives and groups of people from different understandings and backgrounds to grapple with them. Some of the issues that our courses have covered in the past include climate change, issues around race and violence, ethics and engineering, and we'll hear about immigration and belonging tonight. And during questions courses, engage with questions such as what it means to be human, the natural and artistic questions around living in cities on the water, what it means that great heroes like George Washington and King David are revered through history, and yet they have personal flaws themselves. These are all explored in these kinds of courses. Students and faculty talk about complex problems and during questions as being life-changing, as helping students decide on a major, as opening them up to whole new ways of viewing the world, to stimulating personal reflections on their own faith and religious beliefs, to introducing them to a trusted group of friends outside of the dorms. These have all have been some of the comments that we've received from students over the years since these courses were first rolled out in the fall of 2015. Next slide, please. And I just want to close with some statements that kind of represent what we've learned over the years about the effects that these courses have had on our students. We see that they're opening students up to new perspectives about things that they didn't even know that they needed in their own lives. They really help teach students about what it means to be at a liberal arts school, to be educated in the Jesuit Catholic way. Students are finding them to be exciting, that they're learning about things that are bigger than themselves. They're learning that there are new ways of thinking about things, that they're being introduced also not only to rich content, but warm and inclusive communities. And this is very important, we think, for the incoming class of students, especially in these times. And it's really one of the reasons why we limit these courses to first-year students. Next slide, please. And just finally, some of the feedback that we've gotten, that this interdisciplinary approach is really teaching students about how to do things in different ways, out-of-the-box types of thinking and communication skills, giving them the skills to work on teams, that the environment is quite positive. We've heard that from faculty and from students, and that, you know, when you're trying to find your way at a new university, it's nice to have a class in which your professors can become true mentors. You spend a lot of time with professors in the complex problems and enduring questions courses. And I think it's proved helpful to the students to have that contact with faculty. And faculty are saying the same thing about having more chances to become a part of the lives of our students. So I think with that, I'll stop the presentation and I'll turn it over to Gabby and Andres to get to the more important part of tonight's presentation.
Thanks so much, Brian, for that. So my name is Andres Castro Samayoa. As you mentioned already, I'm an assistant professor, and I'm originally actually from El Salvador, but I actually also grew up for some part of my childhood in Ecuador and Honduras until eventually I came here to the US for college, which was a process that I imagine all of you are starting to think about. Is how is it that you can imagine yourself going to college, and what college might be the one that better aligns with the things that you're interested in? So I'm really happy to be here because I hope that what we're offering today is a bit of a broad stroke picture of what taking a class here at BC might look like.
Hi, everybody. I'm also really excited to be here with you tonight. I am from Brazil. I grew up in Sao Paulo, and I came to the US to do my master's degree. So not as much as, you know, Andres here has a lot of experience also with starting college in the US. I had to kind of go through a quick learning curve doing a master's and figuring out. So I'm really happy to be here and share with you our experience with, you know, teaching freshmen in their first year.
So we have a few slides prepared for you that would be great if we can just pull this up right now. And our plan for today is to spend just a few minutes trying to give you a broad overview of this course, but we think it's actually most important that you also get to hear from people who actually took the class. So we have 3 wonderful students who enrolled in this course in fall 2019, which is the first time that we offered the course. And we're going to be offering it again, not this fall, but the subsequent fall. So for those of you who might be starting college fall 2021, then this might be a course that you may wish to consider as well. And like Brian mentioned, this is a course that actually fulfills different requirements that are part of the core curriculum here at Boston College. And one of the things that both for Gabrielle and I is of importance is to recognize how complex the world is and how messy problems are. And when we're trying to talk about the opportunities that we are afforded by going to college, one of the really critical things that we are committed to inviting our students to start thinking a little bit about is, what do you want to do with the fact that you're having an education? What are you going to do with the opportunities that you're being afforded right now? And how is that informing the person that you want to become and the person that you already are? So this course, as you might imagine, is actually pretty intimately informed by our own experiences as folks who have experienced migration, who have been immigrants in the US. And our own disciplinary training is something that is exciting for us to bring into it by asking these questions from multiple perspectives. And I think that that's one of the things that we're hoping we can illustrate a little bit more for all of you, is how is it that we get to make something as complex as immigration issues a little bit clearer by actually drawing from different strands and different disciplinary opportunities. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is actually harkening back to a slide that Brian already gave an overview, but to try to paint a picture of what this course looked like, you might be thinking a little bit about, well, what does this type of complex problems course look like at BC? We wanted to break it down into its different components. So if you were a student in this class, you would imagine coming to a lecture that Gabby and I would co-teach, so we'd both be present at the same time. And it'd be a 1-hour presentation overview of some of the big ideas from the assignments and the readings that we have asked for you to come prepared prior to joining us in our lecture. And in addition to those 3 weekly lectures, we also embedded active learning opportunities, which are called a lab, and also a 75-minute weekly discussion led by a peer. So someone who is a junior or a senior. In this case, for those of you who might be starting this course in the fall, it would be someone who actually took this class fall 2019. So someone who's already been through the course as well, someone who can not only help you make sense out of the content from the course, but also start asking some questions about what does it mean to be a first-year student at BC and how are you navigating that process as well. So it's not just the substantive questions that are important for us, but also the process of helping you understand what is it that you want to do with being a college student. We can go to the next slide as well.
So in the process of coming up with this course, one of the affordances that this particular format lets us enjoy is that under the leadership, working with Brian and with folks at the core, we can talk about issues that matter right now and that, our people are discussing and media is covering and all of that, but we can keep that also within a historical perspective, right? So it's a really great mix of having these 2 different disciplines with the social sciences and history. So we really wanted to address these questions. So we started the class in the beginning of the semester. We put this slide up and said, these are the questions that by the end of the semester, we want you to be able to engage with. We're not saying that we're gonna, develop the right quote unquote answers to this, but it's a way to conceptualize, to think about it, right? What does it mean? What does citizenship mean in the historical perspective, but also in the now? So this mix of contemporary and historical readings and videos and everything that we've done was really to address these questions as a way to kind of move forward in the course. Would you go to the next slide, please? So we were hoping to approach these questions that we just showed you through these multidisciplinary ways, right? So we're really interested in thinking about inequality and injustice also trying to think about empathy in practice, because there's so many issues that are coming up within immigration, right? So we were teaching in 2019, and a lot of the issues that folks in the class wanted to discuss had to do with family separation policies and the zero tolerance policy. So it was also to try to rethink our ideas about empathy and what does it mean to care for the other? What does it mean to understand other people's suffering and stop othering others, right? So it's this kind of movement of trying to understand the curriculum and the academics aspect of it, but keeping in mind that we're human beings inhabiting and sharing the same planet, right? And trying to understand, why do borders matter? Why is it important? Why do countries exist? And then thinking about, does education have a role in this? Can it save us, right? To be very dramatic, we wanted, the question in the class. Well, next slide, please.
So a topic as complex and as varied as immigration is one that we could literally spend years actually examining, and then to try to do it from both historical perspectives, which was my approach in this class, and then also from broader social sciences, specifically anthropological and sociological perspectives, was far too much to even presume that we could really cover in one course. Our goal instead was, and what you see on this slide, is organizing this course around some guiding keywords, some words that perhaps are familiar to folks even prior to taking this course. And our task was to then try to contextualize them, to give them a little bit of history, to enable folks to scratch beyond the surface of perhaps what people have only been consuming through everyday media, and to instead also use these terms as opportunities to dive a little bit more deeply into what does it mean to do historical research? What does it mean to be a social scientist? And how is it that these particular disciplinary trainings can help you develop more critical perspectives as well? Next slide for this. Now, it wasn't just the two of us, and I think that that's really important. You've heard already about these pods, you've heard about the lab, and this is the rest of the folks who were part of our teaching team, right? So we had 10 wonderful current students who are helping us with the pods every week. We would meet once a week as a group as well to think a little bit more about tweaks and changes that we wanted to incorporate. And we also had Professor Daniel Millan, who was a visiting assistant professor, and he was a person charged with also facilitating the 2-hour labs that were for a smaller subsections of the class, right? So that's not for the whole lecture, but labs were actually also opportunities to have smaller group interactions and to actually try to apply some of the things that we were covering in the lectures as well. Next slide.
So in many ways, you can see there's a picture of the two of us in the classroom. So obviously this is pre-COVID, and this is what it looked like most of the time in our lectures. Our lectures were, 50 minutes. So it was quick, but at the same time, because it happened 3 times a week, we were able to really build a relationship with the students before and after the classes also. And we were able to do these polls during lecture, which were basically ways to engage in real time and understand how people understood a particular reading, or if they had questions, or even do a quiz and have people interact with the material real time, not just for a particular event that took a couple months and really active in. And the other piece, as an example, is the archival visit, which Andres coordinated, which was a great opportunity for the students to, to go out of the classroom and to go actually on site and look through material, through books, and through different resources and understand the historical aspect of it. So we really try to keep it moving, and not just in a lecture form of us talking at the students, but in a much more coordinated and exciting, we like to think, maybe the students will say something different, in terms of how we did this. Next slide, please. And then, some of the assignments that we were able to do in this class. These are some of our favorite pieces. My personal favorite was really to see the videos that the teams did. So to give you a bit of a perspective, we had 67 students in our class, and then they were in teams doing this late assignment for the end of the semester, which they had to choose a topic and do in a campaign mode a video of a few minutes and really deliver on the message and on the history of that particular issue. You can imagine how hard that can be. And they did such a wonderful job, and we were able to show to the entire class, and everybody was able to enjoy and see what the other classmates had done. So it was really a great way to do this. And then also to have an opportunity for folks to choose a final project, right? Because perhaps writing an essay and doing a podcast and doing archival research, those are things that you may be thinking about, what I want to do, what kind of major do I want to go into? So we were trying to make space for all the different ways of learning to be represented in the way that we designed this class. Next slide, please. So we are super excited right now to turn to our students, and we really want to start. You guys want to show up on the video right now? Our 3 students that are here. Are you all coming on? Kelby, Ayana, and Dominica, thank you again for being here. We're so happy you're here. And, you know, I think we would love to hear, by way of introducing yourselves, we would love to hear how taking our course, right, the Complex Problems course, informed your academic experience at BC. And you can be totally honest and talk about how the class went for you and what were the things that, you know, helped shape the way your experience went in your first semester and perhaps your first year. So should we start? Ayana, should we start with you?
Sure.
All right.
My name is Ayana Wallace. I'm from Plymouth, Massachusetts. I'm a rising sophomore, and I am majoring in international studies with a concentration in ethics and social justice, and also minoring in economics. And just for some background, I came into college as a math major because that's what I wanted to do with my life at that point in time. And taking this course, I mostly took it just to fulfill the core, but also because I had an interest in the subject matter, but hadn't really learned about it in an academic setting, mostly just over social media and things like that. So over the course of like taking this class, I realized how passionate I was about like immigration and immigration reform, to the point that I had already been doubting my math major. So me applying to be an international studies major was heavily influenced by how much I enjoyed this class. And like also like this class was taught with like the interdisciplinary lenses with history and social science, and the international studies major is also an interdisciplinary major. So I get to take classes from different subjects, all related back to ethics and social justice. So yeah, I really enjoyed this class. It definitely pushed me towards what I'm more passionate about and what I think is my greater calling.
Hi guys, I'm Kelby. I'm from North Adams, Mass. And I'm a political science major and a rising sophomore. I think I got all the intro stuff down. Coming into BC my first year, like my background is as a low-income rural college student. So that kind of, it really just put me through a loop coming in, because it's like such a different experience coming into like this huge sprawling campus that's just like insane to see. And for me, that it's put a lot of doubt into myself about what I can do and what I could do with my career and post-grad opportunities and things like that. But with college, this class, that's just was fantastic, because I really got to explore different ideas in terms of immigration and, you know, the core tenets of the class: immigration, belonging, and education, things about that. And I think that really reinforced for me that political science and political ideas on a theoretical basis are like really exciting to me. And it's like really weird, but I really enjoy that kind of stuff. So that really opened the door for exploring academia and research and like way up there higher ed stuff, you know. So that was I think really exciting for me, and that's really what this class inspired me to explore. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so fun hearing from everyone else too. But so yeah, my name's Domenica Proud and I'm a rising junior. I'm in CSUM, majoring, concentrating in finance and accounting for finance and consulting. And then I also have a double major in philosophy in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. So this class was really incredible for me because I kind of always joke that I applied to every college, like either as a business major or poli-sci. Like I definitely wasn't really sure what I wanted. But I think something that I don't think I realized was how valuable the core can be in really being able to kind of supplement whatever, even if you have like a more career-based major, you can really supplement that with this liberal arts education you're getting from all the different core classes. So for me to really be able to kind of dive deep in an issue like immigration was really awesome to be able to do that through a core class. And then also to be able to continue with research with Professor Oliveira, which is something that I probably wouldn't have anticipated being able to do outside my major, but I think that really contributes to the holistic experience you're getting at BC, and being able to kind of participate in both extracurricular and academic activities that can maybe venture a little outside of your comfort zone or outside of your discipline, but really kind of contributing to your like overall experience and kind of participation in the broader BC community, not just whatever your career path might be or your major might be.
Thanks so much, folks, for giving us that sort of overview. And I hope that for those of you who are in the audience, you can sort of pick up a little bit about just the different academic trajectories of Kelby and Ayana and Dominica, right? And sort of thinking a little bit about this course as an opportunity to sort of branch out into different experiences afterwards. I think something that might be helpful, right, for prospective college students is to then think a little bit about how is it that a course that is framed as counting essentially as two regular courses, right? It's more reading, it's more time in class, more time going to labs and pods. Why is it that you ended up choosing to undertake that in the very first semester on campus? And how is it that it then sort of affected your experience in the rest of your time in the fall? So maybe Kelby, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So I didn't actually take this course for the core. I took a billion AP classes or whatever in high school, so I didn't really have to worry about that too much. I was just really interested in the material itself, and honestly, I'm glad I went that direction. I found that the classes that I'm most interested in, just from purveying them for like the first couple days, are the ones that I tend to do best in and the ones that I get the most out of. And in this class, I really did get a lot out of it, just in terms of what I want to do and like how I have experienced college so far. But yeah, coming into the class, that was all just about just pure interest in the material itself. If you're interested in the class, you should take it. That's my best advice.
How about for you, Dominica?
Absolutely. So yeah, so I think something that's really valuable about this course, because it definitely like might seem a little daunting if you're looking at it and saying like, oh my gosh, is this like two classes in one? But I think something awesome about the core renewal and the complex problems courses is that not only are you learning a lot about the subject material, but you're also kind of learning about yourself as a college student. And I think there's something to be said for the fact that you can really kind of cater your experience at BC to whatever kind of learner you may be. So if you want more lecture-based classes, then you can kind of choose classes that more fit that style, or if you realize that you really value, you find a lot of value from kind of more discussion-based classes, then you can definitely go towards that as well, or the kind of lab experience where you're more hands-on. So I think the fact that this course offers all three within one is really incredible, because I think going in, a lot of freshmen don't even know what kind of student they are, or if you think you're gonna like one class, it might not actually be the format that you're more drawn to when it gets later in your education. So I think the opportunity to have both the lecture-based class of having like the 67 students and really kind of straightforward, two professors at the front of the classroom, you're taking notes on your computer, and then the interaction you'll have is definitely gonna be like questions and answers throughout the course, but it's definitely more lecture based, and you're really just kind of soaking all the information in, taking notes on your computer, and that's very consistent with most of the lecture based classes. But then also having the pod discussions where it's two pod leaders in each group, and it's like 10 people, and it's very kind of informal, colloquial, and you're really having these like hard, tough discussions, and you're learning a lot about different people's narratives and their backgrounds throughout that activity, and that exploration is really incredible. And then the lab and having that be more hands-on. So I think definitely for complex problems, just a big motivation that I had to take it was really just kind of learn more about myself as a student as well.
Hannah, what about you?
So I completely agree with what they've been saying so far. For me, I was kind of thinking like how I wanted to knock out as many cores as possible while also still being interested in what the class would be about. So I found this to be like a perfect opportunity, especially because this class offers 3 core credits, unlike some of the other classes which only offer 2, which I think was on the slide was the social science, history 2, and cultural diversity. And for me, that was just like a great way to get 3 out of the way, while also for me, the course load did not seem overwhelming because most, like I said, some of the other ones are only 2 cores, whereas this one was 3. And it's a 6 credit class, which most like standalone classes are about 3 to 4 credits. So it is like the work of 2 classes, but because you learn the material in different settings, like with the pods and the labs and the lectures and everything, it feels balanced out just because of how much class you're getting with the work. So yeah, this is like a very great way to get the course done while also still being very engaged with the material. And for me also, because I was interested in history and social science, like I said, I came in with a major, but was still a bit undecided. It helped me to narrow which like of the lenses I prefer to learn the material in. And for me, that was social science, but for other people, it might be the history aspect. So it's just good to see where your interests lie, especially if you're still undecided.
You. One of the things that we really wanted to ask you all is something that surprised you from taking this course. I know that for Andres and I, we designed this course together. We taught, you were our first students that ever got taught, this class. So we're never going to forget you because now we have this bond of being each other's, you're freshmen and we were doing this class for the first time. So we definitely know that it was a puzzle with the moving parts and everything happening. So we would love to hear something that surprised you from the course that you weren't expecting and then it happened. Domenica, you want to go?
Sure. So something that definitely surprised me is I think I went into this class kind of wanting to check off the box of just learning a little bit more about kind of current immigration policy, so more from the social science lens, because I feel like I try to stay as politically engaged as possible, but most of the kind of issues that I'm learning about, I have some framework offered from a course that I've already taken. So if I'm learning about fiscal policy, I can kind of file that in the file that I have from my microeconomics course or that kind of thing. But I feel like immigration isn't something that you're usually learning in a class setting. So I think I was definitely kind of going in, and that this class far and away achieved that goal in every way, kind of learning about contemporary immigration issues and policies and perceptions in the US. But something that surprised me was how interested and how engaged I was in the historical material as well, and how much I loved kind of learning about that, which was kind of a added bonus that I wasn't anticipating. So that was probably my most pleasant surprise from this course.
Kelby?
So I think the thing that surprised me the most, like coming in, it's like 76 people or whatever are taking the class and the lectures. And so I was going and thinking like, oh God, this is going to be like some huge class where I'm going to be like somewhere way in the back and I'm going to have like trouble hearing them. I'm going to have to like put on some like hearing aids or something just to listen and stuff. So like that was like really kind of nerve wracking for me, especially because like, I'm used to like 10, 15 people in class. It's not like 70. But that's what really surprised me is because, we'd have like these small pods and these small labs where we could really get to know each other individually and as a group. And that really helped me feel really closely connected to just like an entire group of people that in a way that, even smaller classes for me couldn't really do. And so for me, just that kind of interconnected bond that I had with students and professors was just phenomenal.
And let's just be honest here. You were not sitting all the way in the back. You were sitting in the first row.
I know, I was, because I like sitting up front. Okay, that's I don't know.
Ayana?
Yeah, so similar to what Kelby said, I was surprised by like how connected I felt both to the professors and like my students around me. Like I've made some of my like best friends from this class, even though it sounds intimidating with like 60 plus students in lecture. Like I made some of my best friends in lecture, and then like Kelby said, with the pods, since that's like a small group, you really get to know the people in your pod. But also like with the professors, because I feel like I'm just one of like 60, I feel like I'm just kind of like in the middle of like the sea of students. They've made themselves a lot more accessible through office hours, which just to explain that, if you have like a question or want some clarification on a topic, you can sign up for office hours, which is like 15 to 30 minutes with the professor. Or you could also just say, hi, I want to get to know you better, which I definitely did that with both of them. And that way it's like good to make a connection from the start, so that throughout the course, if you have any difficulty or problems, it's like I felt a lot more comfortable reaching out to them, even though I knew like I was in like a big crowd.
Yeah, thanks so much for that overview, folks. And I think that just to add to Ayana, to your point, right? Like that's one of the things that Gabby and I were very interested in as well, was sort of adding to the experience of feeling connected to BC as well, right? As faculty, for me, this was one of the rare opportunities that I get to actually teach undergraduate students. Usually I'm teaching master's or doc students, right? So this was really fun. But I want to make sure that before we transition to the broader Q&A, that we actually get to hear a little bit about your experience as a student in the class. So if you had to illustrate briefly, right, one of your memorable assignments, something that you made for this class, like what's the thing that sort of comes to mind? So Ayana, why don't we start with you?
It's like 20 seconds because
so super brief.
So 20 seconds each. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to go really fast. So as you saw on the slide, the final assignment, you got to choose out of many different options. And for me, I chose the podcast, which personally, like I had never really been like a podcast listener or creator. So this was like an interesting way to apply the information that I had learned in something that isn't like an essay, like, because for me, that's not necessarily like the best way I deliver my like best work. So it was just great to produce an assignment that, okay, I'm gonna stop. 20 seconds.
Good. Yeah.
All right, I go next really quick. So for the kind of the same assignment, I decided to take a different approach, and I did the one assignment, which was you choose a new word and you get to design an entire week of the course. So that's like the lab and the pod discussion and the 3 different activities. And the coolest part of that for me was I chose art, and for the lab activity, I actually had it be like full activity for going to the Institute of Contemporary Art right in the Seaport. And there was a really incredible exhibit called something about borders, and it said when home won't let you stay. And that was so incredible that during finals week, when I was writing all my papers and I was studying for my exams, I was actually like in an exhibit and like learning so much kind of from that for our final project. Was really great for me.
So for me, I actually was a bit insane, and I chose 2 different papers to write for the final project or the final assignment, because I actually found that I really love just to write about stuff. I think the midterm paper was actually the one I remember best, because I just loved working with the ideas. We had like 5 or 6 different options, and I chose one that related Frederick Douglass with modern historiographer. And having that play of ideas against each other was just really fun to put out into a paper, because that's just what I like to do, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, let me echo that thank you to our professors as well as to our extraordinary students. And not surprisingly, the questions that have come from our studio audience are really focused on the students. The first one, I'll try to capture it as best I can. The subject matter of this course, which you've outlined for us, is just so timely and so highly charged, and oftentimes people have really strong opinions on these topics of immigration, citizenship. So in the course, one of our prospective students would like to know, how were differences of opinion addressed in the classroom? Oftentimes, I'm sure there were opposing viewpoints. How was that navigated? How was that negotiated among the class, the students and the professors? Anybody want to chime in on that one?
I'll say it for 10 seconds and maybe one of the students can jump in with a real example.
Sure.
I think one of the main things that we wanted to focus on was more about, something that Andres and I always talked about is you can all have opinions, right? We can all have opinions. We're all entitled of those. In the classroom and during the class, we really wanted folks to develop ways to think about with evidence and with reading materials and being able to contextualize the things that they were trying to talk about, right? So that was kind of the climate that we wanted to have in the classroom, being respectful, caring for one another, empathizing with one another, but really to have put out that particular opinion, when you raise your hand and talk about something that you really think about the evidence and the different things you can bring to the table. So I don't know if one of you wants to chime in.
So I think I can attest to, there being an openness with diversity of opinion, seeing as I was one of the most opinionated people in the class, probably. I think Samayo and Oliveira would know that. But just to give you an example of like how diversity is welcome in the class, like me and another student would frequently kind of bounce ideas off of each other from like opposing viewpoints. Like it would frequently happen, like I would say something in response to the professor and he would come in and say like, his own viewpoint that contrasted with that, or it'd be vice versa. There's a lot of going back and forth between different perspectives. And I never felt like, I being pressured into anything. I just felt comfortable with the things I believed and I said them out.
And just to quickly go off of that, like our assignments weren't graded based on like having the right opinion. It was based on like how well formulated your argument was. So that also shouldn't be a worry because there's not necessarily a right opinion. It's just up to you to like build your own opinion based on the unbiased information that you're given.
Terrific. Thank you. As the course was being described by our professors, you talked about the structure of the course, and you talked about the purposeful ongoing discussions, the pods, and how there's more to this course than just the subject matter. There's also the opportunity for students to really reflect on, how they're adjusting to college, how they're dealing with issues of the day. And that struck me anyway as connecting so much with one of Boston College's Jesuit motto of cura personalis, care for the individual person, education of the whole person. Would the students be willing to address that a little bit? How do you feel this class or the Boston College experience that you've had has really demonstrated that cura personalis, that care for the individual person, education of the whole person? Anybody want to address that?
I can go again.
Thank you, Ayana.
So this class was mostly first year students, but also there were some second year students. And even so, like many of us are still very new to the college campus and just generally adjusting to college life. So especially in the pod, this is like a small group of like students that are in the same boat. And okay, am I frozen or am I good?
You're good.
Okay, that are in the same boat, so it's a lot easier to connect because everyone is so desperate to like make connections and make friends. And especially because pods are held at nighttime, like my pod tended to get dinner together afterwards to like continue to like build the connection outside of the classroom.
Great. Excellent. How about this one? How do BC students, and this comes from the audience, how do BC students take what they're learning in a class like this or in the classroom in general and then apply it in the real world? I mean, clearly you're taking away lessons from this class and other classes. What opportunities do you have to apply what you're learning or reflect on what you're learning about through experiences perhaps in the local community or on the BC campus? Real world experiences that you've had that you can apply what you're learning?
So I think with classes like this, one of the biggest takeaways you can get is information, and how you interact with other people using that information. Like for myself, I could interact with friends and family, having discussions about topics like immigration much more, not necessarily like, it's not you, just in a much more informed way, I would say. So you have a lot more information to go off of, and a lot more that's justifying your beliefs and justifying your arguments. And so you can be a lot more persuasive and get a lot more done in terms of, trying to get groups of people to, believe what you believe. That's kind of the art of persuasion is kind of what you get from it.
Got it. I think Professor Garreau would like to join in on this one.
I would, because it really speaks to one of the great successes of the complex problems model. This notion of having hands-on labs that get students out of the classroom doing real world things. Tried saying that in front of 200 people. There's Andres and Gabby's course, but we have others that utilize the same model, and they bring students out into the surrounding area, the area surrounding the BC campus. We have a course called From Black Lives Matter to Me Too movement. And in this class, all the students during their lab time will go and serve different communities, different groups that are helping folks in marginalized people in the Boston area. There's also a course called Understanding Race, Gender, and Violence, and that also has a service component to it, where the lab is really a living lab, where students are engaging in different activities to help people on the ground work with those that are most in need. We could also talk about the Pulse program, which is a service program that fulfills the philosophy and theology core requirements, but it does so much more than that. And it's something that's been going on at Boston College for quite some time now. I think we just had our 50th year anniversary. John could correct me if I'm wrong. But that's, the number of students that serve the Boston area is incredible. And the complex problems courses are contributing to that.
So at the outset of this presentation, Professor Garreau and I really emphasized the importance of liberal arts education. And you students now, you're young, obviously. You're early in your BC careers, but you've been exposed to the core curriculum. You've been exposed to this really exciting core renewal program. You're all thinking about your paths. You've talked about your paths, your majors, what you're exploring anyway. But could you talk, so at least thus far in your BC experience, about how this liberal arts foundation that Boston College believes is so important, how it's affected your thinking, how it's affected maybe your approach to the rest of your education at Boston College? How has it sort of influenced you in ways that you might not have thought when you arrived here?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I think for me, like, the liberal arts education is something that has been like so significant in my whole experience at BC, starting with I took a perspectives course freshman year that is philosophy and theology core, and that actually motivated me to declare a double major in philosophy. And I think really kind of having that balance and incorporating philosophy, and just like that's kind of the framework through which the prism through which I view most of my other classes, in ways that I probably wouldn't have anticipated, especially going in and not even knowing what a philosophy class would have even looked like. But then realizing that I can have that approach and I can incorporate my philosophy coursework into all of my different classes, whether it be like a natural science core or even one of my business classes that might seem more like quantitative or analytical, but actually being able to have that philosophical approach and really kind of learning how to learn and approach issues is definitely applies to everything I do in my life outside of the class as well.
Thanks, Domenica. Okay, I'm going to ask one last question, and this didn't exactly come from the audience, but I know that all those 200 people that are tuning in tonight have this question on their minds. You're all successful college students. So what advice can you offer to these prospective students as they're going through their search in a very different way than all of you have had to do? But give them some advice, if you would, as we part in these last couple of minutes on what they should be looking for in a college search, and things that would be important as they're tuning into sessions like this, and hopefully being able to visit colleges perhaps later this year or early next year. What pieces of advice would you give to them? They're early in their search. You've landed successfully. What are the great pieces of advice you'd impart? Not fair. Now you have to share. You can't hold on to them.
Um, me? Okay. I was just thinking that something that I really value about BC is something that like drew me to make the decision to go to BC was like finding a college where you have room to grow, like academically, socially, spiritually, like all the lees, just a place where you can like discover more about yourself and discover new ideas that might influence you, because I know that like having this liberal arts education as well as just being at BC specifically has given me so much room to grow and learn more about myself and like what I want to do with my life.
Fantastic.
I think for me, my experience has been probably a bit different from a lot of people's, because I didn't really put much time into the college search process because I didn't have a lot of those resources available to me. But I can say, like in retrospect, that being in a place where you feel comfortable to grow, I think is the biggest thing that you can look for. So you really just have to look for a college that will speak to you personally and will give you the resources to become a better person than you were before. I think that's the best thing to do.
Terrific.
And kind of definitely agree with both of you, and kind of to reiterate what both of you already said about like finding a community in which you can grow. I think something that I definitely didn't think enough about when I was doing my college search is kind of remembering that it's not just about like what's the best school that I can go to, but also the fit. Like you're interviewing these schools just as much as they're interviewing you, or it so may seem. So I think definitely just kind of realizing that, and as you're listening to sessions like this, like, are these people that you'd be excited to learn next to or learn from? And I think really kind of if you can get a good sense of, wait, these are actually the people that I'd want to surround myself with at an institution for the next 4 years, and that is going to definitely make the whole transition even easier, kind of making it feel more like home.
Well, with that, I want to thank Professors Samayoa, Professor Oliveira, and Professor Garreau, and I think they join me in expressing our really gratitude and pride in the three of you as representatives of Boston College. You have done an absolutely extraordinary job in making this great core renewal course come alive for the audience tonight, and really highlight what Boston College is doing with liberal arts education. We're delighted that all of you were able to join us this evening. We wish you happy final weeks of summer. Good luck as you continue exploring colleges and universities. We're confident that just by the fact that you're here on a Wednesday evening in the summertime means that you're destined for greatness. So have a great evening. Thanks so much for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you, everyone.